This podcast is brought to you by Always Possible.
alwayspossible.co.uk.
When Sarah Everard was murdered by a serving Met Police officer in 2021, something fundamentally shifted in UK society. She wasn't the first woman to be harmed by someone she should have been able to trust, or the first woman arbitrarily singled out simply because she was a woman. And it's with nothing but shame and heartache that I suspect there will be more women killed because they are women out in public, and a man decides that he has the right to hurt her. But something has changed. And not just in public awareness or debate, and not just in reviews and reports about policing, public safety, and the pathetic prosecution rates for violence against women. Something has also changed in business. 2 years since Sarah Everard's murders and the consequent vigils, I'm starting to see the righteous anger become something pragmatic and considered. Having analysed the problem, and what a big problem it is, I see some very creative entrepreneurs doing what good entrepreneurs do best: test and develop solutions. This episode of the Possibility Club makes a good companion piece with my 2022 interview with Jamie Klingler, founder of the Reclaim the Streets movement. Her anger created a movement and a very visible challenge to politicians and traditionalists about safety for women on the UK streets. And now we're looking beyond policy and campaigning to the systemic change that has to be made at the heart of business, particularly the security industry. In every city, town and village in the UK, the safety of people enjoying a night out is often in the hands of some of the country's 400,000 trained door supervisors, bouncers and security guards. There are more than double the number of security personnel in the UK than there are police officers. And these professionals know the streets. They know the streets around where they work. They know where trouble is likely to happen. They understand human psychology, and they have the powers to remove people from harm's way if they so choose. But there are two important things you should know. 90% of door supervisors are men, and their principal job is simply to protect property. So the curious place where commercial business thinking meets critical social reform is this. What if 50% of door supervisors were women? And what if security job descriptions were tweaked so that they also had to have a specific role in protecting people? What would that change? I'm Richard Freeman, and my guest this week is someone who demonstrates practical bravery in almost every way. She's a magistrate, a businesswoman, and a brilliant storyteller. But most importantly, she's the founder and CEO of Second Line of Defence, probably the most talked about security recruitment company in the UK right now. And why? Because it and she is completely unafraid to turn the whole world of security upside down. Please meet the brilliant Lisa Bascott. Well, it is early April, recording this, beginning stage of the Easter holidays. My children are already driving me mad, so I've escaped to a little room in the house to have one of my gorgeous chats with a special guest for the Possibility Club. And as always, we're discussing practical bravery. And I'm really delighted that my special guest this week is Lisa Bascott. Lisa, before we get into the long grass, how the devil are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And like you, I'm going to have my children descending upon me soon. So, I've got to get myself steeled up for all of that. But I'm good, thank you.
So, Lisa, I'm very, very interested to talk about your major career switch and this incredible business/change mission that you're on. But I want to first perhaps have a think about where you came from. So what is it that you were doing? What was your life before that kind of big catalyst moment happened?
Yeah, I suppose the pandemic was a massive turning point for most people in the world. But for me, it was, if you like, towards the end of the pandemic, so end of February 2021, it was a positive change for me. So my children and I were getting ready to relocate from South London. So I'm a South London girl born and bred in Clapham, but my home was in Crystal Palace by the time I moved to Brighton and Hove. And as I tell people, I have a bit of an extended blended family thing going on with my ex-husband, John. So we've been divorced for about 10 years, but we have always put our children at the heart of everything that we do. So we remained, to all intents and purposes, a family unit, just didn't live together. He remarried, had a son, Alex. It's like a surrogate child to me. And as a unit, we all decided to take the plunge and move out of London and move to the coast. And it was exciting. It was great. I was really looking forward to it. The kids were excited, really good schools that they were going to. And I got here, and at the time I was buying and selling and renovating period properties, and it was great. And it's what I loved. My background for 20 odd years was in business to business, media and advertising. And I did that. And then when we divorced, I moved out of that, followed my passion, which was sort of property and architecture, and then rolled with that. So that's essentially what I was doing. That's what I was thinking I was going to continue to do when I went to Brighton. And then within about 7 or 8 days of moving here and kind of sorting out piles of boxes. And I never do this. It's such a strange thing. I never watch daytime TV, but something made me turn the telly on that daytime. And it was a news bulletin talking about this young woman who had gone missing. And the thing that really alerted me was they were talking about Clapham. Mm-hmm. Nothing happens in Clapham. And I was just like, whoa, that's a bit odd. And then I started to hear about, they hadn't heard from her. She'd called her boyfriend. And then I started to get that sort of rising, sort of sick feeling in my stomach. And I thought, oh my God, they're not going to find her alive. She's gone, right? What happened? That was that. Weird. 2 days later, the announcement was made about the police officer, Wayne Cousins, who had been arrested for her kidnapping, rape, murder, abduction. And I just remember feeling just a sort of a rising sense of panic. I was disgusted when I found out that it was a police officer. I'm a magistrate of nearly 11 years. So, me and the rule of law have a bit of a close relationship. And I couldn't get my head around the fact that this happened to this person. And it was also, she did all the right things that, as a woman, we're told to do. And, unfortunately, that burden has always been put on us. Make sure that you leave at the right time, wear flat shoes, walk on the light side of the road, call someone, right, on your journey home. All of those. She called her boyfriend. They were making arrangements for the next night to meet up. She just didn't turn up. And then, after all of that, there was anger. This man had violated his position of power in the most heinous way. I just, it was beyond me. And I just found myself sort of, signing every petition there because they popped up all over. I was signing them left, right and centre. That didn't make me any happier. And I found that I was sort of subliminally starting to do some Google searches about the number of occurrences that year of women who had been hurt at the hands of generally men. And long story short, I kind of fell upon the nighttime economy and essentially the institution that is there to kind of look after people and safeguard people on a night out. And then when I looked at the kind of levels of policing that had fallen off a cliff, and the fact that, when you're in trouble, it is unlikely that it's going to be a police officer who's coming to your rescue. It's going to be one of those people that stands on the doors of venues. And when I looked into the private security industry and looked at their past and the history and the perception of the people doing that role, and that since 2001, since the industry was regulated and the industry body, the Security Industry Authority, was established, there have been in roughly around 400,000 door supervisor licenses that have been issued. Until recently, only 10% are women. That can't be. And I scratched away, and sure enough, it was hovering at around 8% before the end of last year. It's only just about got to 10%. I was absolutely horrified. And then I started to think, maybe this is the problem, right? Maybe this is absolutely the problem. Why are women not represented on the law? Why is it when I go out, 90% of the time, basically, those stats are telling me that the person on that door does not look like me or represent me or other certain vulnerable groups in any way? And more importantly, it's the physical journey that I often go on overnight when I'm going out to meet my friends. The person, generally a man, has absolutely no understanding of that whatsoever. I tell the story all the time. You and I will get a phone call of an evening. Your male friends will say to you, do you fancy coming out for a drink, Rich? You go, yeah, sure. What you do is you go, woo, you skip out, you throw your jacket on, and all you're thinking about on that journey is what pint you're going to have. That's it. Nothing else crosses your mind. Mm-hmm. Let's rewind to me, and I get the same phone call from the same mate. Subliminally, what I'm thinking about in my house as I'm excited is about what am I going to wear? Is my skirt too short? Shall I wear heels? Do I wear flat shoes? How am I going to get home? This is before I've even left the house. Absolutely. And then when I leave the house, there's that journey from my home to the taxi rank or the bus stop, and all the unwanted comments that I may or may not get because I'm wearing a short skirt or because I've got makeup on and I'm looking really nice. I'm not asking for that. I don't want it, thanks. Mm-hmm. And then I get on the bus and I go about my place and I get to the venue, and then I've got this person standing on the door who's just being a little bit difficult and just wants to wield a bit of power and wants to make life awkward for me and doesn't recognize the journey that I've been on, and that any decision he makes on that door may have some serious consequences for me. Mm. And if I even get through that and I get into the club, then there's all the issues around. Is my drink going to get spoiled? And what idiot is going to want to come and fill me up at the bar, right? And it's just like, oh my God, I just want to go out. And then you've got all of that in reverse on your way home. But now the difference is you're a bit pissed. Everybody else around you is pissed. Mm-hmm. It's nighttime. It's volatile. You're walking down dimly lit roads. All sorts of nonsense is going on. And then ultimately what a woman thinks about on that journey home is, am I going to get raped? And that's my journey. That's my journey when I get that phone call. And we need to start understanding. We need to start talking about this more. And we need people in those positions, frontline security, they may have a badge on them, but these are people who are there, in my opinion, to safeguard people. Yeah. And I think there's been a massive disconnect over time about what that role should be and could be. Society has changed massively, and particularly for women, as we saw with the vigil for Sarah Everard, just after it was announced that this guy had abducted her, women gathered on Clapham Common and we saw the response of the Met Police, which was just, it was shocking. Yeah. It was just like, really, you could not have gotten it more wrong. It was like, they're grieving. They've been putting up with this type of behavior for years, right? But now they're finding a voice. Why? Potentially because things like the Me Too movement back in 2016 and 17 started that process for them. And then we had George Floyd as well, and we saw the power of social media and, people globally getting together because they were protesting against injustice. We saw, and then we were living in a different world. And I think that generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs, are like, we ain't having this. And they can be a little bit entitled, but they've got a voice and they're not afraid to use it. And so imagine a scenario where you've got some antiquated thoughts in general at that frontline position, and you've got this new cohort wishing to be nothing other than their true authentic selves, and then you get this clash, right? And you get this sort of mismatch, and nothing is being done within the industry to rectify that, to raise the awareness of the people in those roles. It's a missed opportunity, and I think women are in a really good position to help this industry overcome some of those barriers. But, we need representation across the board.
So much there. What an extraordinary journey you've just taken me on, but what a journey you've been on there, from that moving to Brighton and getting that gut punch from the news. There are no words that can describe that event adequately. But the catalyst that has been is extraordinary and life-affirming for, as much as the event itself and what Wayne Couzens did and what the Met have done has ripped the kind of hope out of so much of our society. You go, oh my God, I just can't. Why are we here?
Absolutely.
But the reaction to it has been such a counter to that. And I chatted with Jamie Klingler for this podcast a few months ago, last year, who set up the Reclaim These Streets movement on the back of, she had exactly the same reaction you did and couldn't not do something. Yeah. And I think it was that, petitions come and go, but what I've been really struck by is how many people have done something as a result and said, look, really this isn't okay, and have rolled their sleeves up. And that's been really exciting to see. But I think you're right in that there's a moment happening. And so I wonder, what you said, you looked at the nighttime economy and, so what was the kind of landscape in Brighton? And when you rocked up and sort of said, okay, I think there's a security can be done differently here. What was the response?
It was interesting because I wasn't thinking about security specifically in the city that I live in now. I was just thinking about there is this industry that now, actually, let's just face it, this is the industry sector that is tasked with, when anything goes wrong, being there for you and I and or our children or our friends. And it was a mess, really. It wasn't fit for purpose. And so I was looking at it from this sort of holistic point of view. And I also then added to the mix, the specific qualities that I think that women have and that can bring to the role. And so I thought, right, if I'm going to take, if I want to bring about proper change, then I put my money where my mouth was. I was going to set up this company to go out there and find the very best people to do this job. But I also knew that in order to have that sort of genuine conversation with people, but in particular women, I had to go and do this training myself. I could have set up the company without doing that, but it just didn't seem right to me. So off I went and I did the door supervisor training course. I loved it. It was absolutely brilliant. Met some amazing people, but I also knew at the end of that course that it wasn't going to stop there. I had to get out there. I had to be on the front line and I had to find out anecdotally for myself what was going on. Who are these people? Why are they in these roles? What got them to that position? How do they feel about the industry that they work in? How do they feel about the treatment that they get? But also it was a massive opportunity for me to talk to the customers, right? Punters. What has changed? And what I knew in my gut over 18, 19 months, meeting hundreds of people, having this conversation over and over again, you start to build a pattern of the change that was going on in society, what people expected of venues, of security companies in that role, how disappointed they'd been. One of the saddest things for me was every single person I spoke to during that time period had a shit story to tell about someone on the door, some experience. And they can tell me the time, the date, the place, who they were with. It's really sad. It was definitely about needing to understand the effect that having a woman in a position like that would have on people. And it was brilliant. It was positive. I mean, young people in particular were literally saying, you make me feel safe. Knowing that you are here makes me feel safe. And my style, I am Lisa, whether I'm the same person sitting on the bench in court as I am having a glass of wine with my mates, as I am standing on that door. I engage with people. I love talking to people. I think it's important that we gain an individual's trust at that point, because that that level of trust at that point will have a massive knock-on effect to how that person views you when they are in that event. If something bad happens to a woman in an event and she feels that she can come to the person on the door, then we can potentially save that person for a whole load of a heartache. But generally speaking, what happens is that a girl will be assaulted into a club, and rather than go to a door supervisor, she'll take that shit home with her. And that's just unacceptable, right?
This podcast is brought to you by Always Possible. But who are we?
Always Possible works with ambitious businesses, charities and public services that are thinking about what's next.
From architects to aerospace companies, puppet theatres to primary schools, business networks to big data analysts.
If you're wanting to be brave with some big decisions or to be clearer about what to prioritise, then an award-winning workshop from the Always Possible team is a brilliant starting point.
We care about just one thing: building ideas that work.
For creative, intuitive and practical expertise, consider Always Possible as your strategic partner. Find out more about how we could power up your mission. Visit alwayspossible.co.uk.
alwayspossible.co.uk.
You've set up a business called Second Line of Defence. Now that takes a different kind of vision, some different skills, some guts, some, it's not just about you getting you negotiating a job with an employer or freelance, whatever. That's about you negotiating with an industry, a whole new sort of offer.
Yeah, I suppose we're really going to go big, I suppose. I've realised on this journey, my life and my view of life with my children, especially now with my two children in it. I have a daughter, Eva, who's just turned 16, and my son, Jack, is going to be 14 at the end of July. And they're my world, right? And it was just this idea, not only that, as a woman, I have the God-given right to be able to walk along the street without fear of harassment or violence, right? That's given. But Mama Bear here, right? Times that by 100 when it comes to my children, particularly my daughter, who's about to hit the age where she's going to be living her, best life, going out there, God help me, drinking, experimenting, being her true authentic self. And the idea that she can't do that, or she's going to have to spend the rest of her life looking over her, was just totally unacceptable to me. I can't protect every step that they take. I can't do that. They've got to go out there. But what I can do is do everything in my power to change the narrative around how things work and how the people who are supposed to be protecting her do their job. So it literally was like, I know it's mad, but this is what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to take this conversation to the people that matter. I don't care how long it's going to take, but it's going to happen, because the thing driving me is protecting my children, protecting my goddaughter, protecting my friends who have to. That was the thing that was driving me. And it was also, enough is enough. I was just sick of hearing the same stories and nothing changing. Everyone going, oh, women against violence against women and girls is atrocious, but yet it still happens. And yet, industry sectors are not doing anything to combat this. So I thought, all right, I don't know whether anyone's going to listen, but I'm going to do my damnedest. So, first of all, I thought, well, how am I going to get into that industry sector within the security sector? I'm not ex-police. I'm not military. I have nothing that I can connect with them, apart from the fact that I'm there and I'm interested in protecting vulnerable people. And so I thought, right, I tell you what, the quickest way to make a difference is by setting up a recruitment company that will ensure the integrity of the people wearing that badge. I can vet them. I can talk to them. I can talk about what my mission is, and they've got to get on board with that. Otherwise, get lost, I'm not having it, right? And then once I kind of get my foot through the door and establish a business that I can start having a conversation with the security industry, it was then, right, how am I going to get them to engage with me? And it was nerve-wracking because, as I say, I'm not from that industry, but I recognized that I had to I had to share my voice and I had to share my opinion. So I went onto LinkedIn and I started sending posts about stuff, thinking, oh my God, this is really scary. Why would anyone listen to me? And then slowly but surely, you're starting to get some traction when you start talking about the issues that are everyone's issues, really. How can that not be everyone's issue?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was about, I recognized that I wasn't just about a momentary change. I recognized and I realized what I was talking about was systemic change. I was talking about culture change. I was talking about changing the overall narrative of an industry sector, sending people out into frontline positions, dealing with the general public and lacking, basically. And I needed them to be aware of this, and they needed to take ownership of it. And as a mother with a big mouth, I thought, maybe this is going to be the start. And that literally, I didn't really have much more of a plan outside of that. All I knew is that I had an awful lot to say about it. I'd witnessed things firsthand for almost 2 years. I mean, I was going out to working nights. I was coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was having to deal with my children. Sometimes I was having to go into court the next day, sit on the bench. But there was something driving me, and that thing still drives me. For me, it's quite obvious. That 10% number needs to be quadrupled, minimum. There should be equity, but let's face it, it's going to take a long time. But, am I being unrealistic to say that I would like the stat to be 25, 30% within the next 3 or 4 years? I don't think that's impossible. It means that the industry will need to start having a little look at itself and making changes and opening up the door and truly being inclusive. It's all well and good saying we want more women, but opening the door is not going to get them running through it, right? There are certain things that you need to do to change in order to attract these people into these roles. And I think this is where big companies within security are kind of thinking, oh God, right, okay.
Yeah. I mean, are they listening? Are you being heard?
I thought that being heard was going to take a long time, and I was prepared for the long haul. I was in it for the long haul. I talked about a roadmap that I had for the journey that I thought I was going to go on this year. I've had to rip up that roadmap because the doors have opened for me. The regulator, I'm not going to mention names, but big organizations in security have approached me and want to hear what I have to say and recognize that I have a voice, and I'm saying it not because I'm on any kind of agenda. No, there's no kind of, this is X company saying it because they want to tick boxes and they want to look a particular way. This is Lisa, not from security, not from a military or a police department. All she's concerned about is helping this industry sector change its image, change its perception, raise the levels of awareness, increase the standards, professionalize it, and ultimately, by doing all of those things, make themselves more attractive to 51% of the population who have these amazing skills that the industry absolutely needs, right? So for me, it's like a no-brainer.
It's a commercial no-brainer for them, isn't it? They've got double the workforce available, potentially, and they've got more punters coming in who feel safe to be there. I mean, it makes no sense that would ever be questioned. But also, I think it's not just that you've turned up; it's that you've clearly got a brain, you've clearly got a compelling story, you're clearly able to speak a language that they understand, rather than just going in sort of shouting. Yeah. You've got a logical, credible story and pitch, and that goes a long way, doesn't it?
And I say to everyone, that I've been speaking to on this journey, it's like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. It felt like for such a long time, and it was that thing was driving me. But it got when I recognized that the thing was becoming bigger, much bigger than it started out to be. I got a little bit scared, thinking, "Oh my God, I just can't do this on my own." But of course, I couldn't do it on my own. I needed allies. I needed to collaborate with people. I needed to join forces, and that that's the thing that has been happening. People have been coming out of the woodwork going, hooray, great, what can we do? And it's the single most amazing thing that's happened to me on this journey. I just couldn't believe how many people from across the country, what can I do for you? Is there anything that I can do to help? Can I introduce you to someone? And when I've given the odd talk recently, at the end of the talk, all I say, when people say, what can I do to help? I just say, just tell one other person that you know about my journey, about what it is I am trying to achieve. Just one person. That's all I ask. And I remember doing that last Friday at an event in Brighton, and I was going to London to be on a security panel, and my phone was blowing up because 50 women who were in that room all heard me. I thought I almost cried on the train. It was just like, oh my God, the power of sort of resonance and, and hitting a nerve that everybody gets and understands and is willing to own as well. Like everyone in that room were like, we want this change. So we are willing you along, Lisa. You're not on your own. And they were, every single one of them saying, you've got us here, like backing you. And that is, it's really hard to describe how phenomenal that feels, right? And it still feels like, oh gosh, can I deliver? But it's the thing that keeps me going, and believe me, I have had some serious ups and downs on this journey.
Sure.
Self-doubt, tears, mini breakdowns, you name it. I've had a lot, but I have an amazing close network of friends. My 2 children are like my biggest supporters. They are super proud of what I'm doing and my biggest champions. And I have started to make really good inroads into the industry, and people are coming and wanting to collaborate. And for the first time, I feel brave enough to kind of believe that this thing will happen. This thing will happen. The receptiveness is there. I think there is a recognition that I'm not going anywhere as well, like little thorn in everyone's side. And I recognize that for now, I am the thing moving this thing forward. I don't want to be, and nor do I need to be, the thing moving this thing forward forever. I want this movement, whatever you want to call it, to take on a life of its own. I want it to have its own legs and to be fully standing when I'm, dead and gone, basically. I'm just the person here pushing it in the right direction.
That was going to be my last question, and maybe you've answered it, but what do you want to be famous for? In 100 years, when they're looking at the evolution of the nighttime economy and the security industry, and people go, although there was a really big change that happened in 2023, how do you want that framed?
We talk about sort of just making a difference, standing up. I was raised to, know the difference between right and wrong and to take a stand for things, particularly around injustice. But for me, it's as simple as everybody who goes out on a journey at night deserves for that night to end in exactly the same way as it started, which is, full of joy, happiness, and uneventful. So I want to ensure that every woman, young girl, vulnerable person walking the streets of night, going out to, have a good night, can get themselves back home without there being anything or anyone doing them harm. And if I can create an industry sector where respect and representation is key to that solution, then I would have made a difference. And if I just do that for one person, that's enough for me.
It's been a joy to talk to you, Lisa.
Very much, Richard.
We'll put all the links to your business and the numerous platforms you've been talking about it. I mean, it's been fantastic. When I was first suggested that I have a chat with you for the pod, I'll be honest, I hadn't come across your business, but then almost it's one of those things every day. You can't not kind of move for people talking about you, and I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, lots and lots of luck.
Thank you. And I would really love to kind of keep up with anything that you're doing with regards to the city, because it's been kind to me. You get out of stuff what you put in. I believe that too. But this city has been kind to me, and there are some seriously incredible people who have just had my back from day one, and I will be forever, absolutely forever grateful to them all. There are two distinct parts of the business, and you actually mentioned it. So there's the recruitment side, which is kind of a process and that's fine. But actually, where I now realise where I'm needed and where that systemic change is going to happen is by having my foot, through the door, talking to policymakers, talking to big industry sectors. And what I have recognised about this industry is that any conference or forum or whatever that takes place is all about the same thing. It's about securing premises, securing data, intelligence, things. People, you don't even hear that word, right? People need to do all of those other things, but you don't hear about it. I am going to be curating a industry conference, basically, for that sector, and the framework for this event is going to be security and all the things that pertain to that level, but it's going to be framed around safeguarding people. So how do we take that completely, turning it completely on its head and going, you've got it wrong, mates, right? You need to be thinking about it this way. All those other things will follow through. You will still end up protecting premises and data, whatever, but you need people to do that. I know computers are a big thing, but you need people. So I'm going to be framing it in this way. And the reason why it feels as though it's going to work now is that the people that I need, the big names that I need to draw in the crowds, are the people who are opening up the doors to me now. So I would very much like to kind of talk to you, because I want to have that event in Brighton. I want Brighton to be the place, and it would just be interesting to talk. I'm going to have to be having conversations about venues and so any help that you might be able to give me, or pointers in the right direction about people that might want to collaborate with me on this, I'd be really grateful.
There's a big conversation, Lisa, for us to have, not just about Brighton. And so listeners to this pod are from all over the world, but might know that I have a big stake in the kind of ecosystem of Brighton, Hove and Sussex, and Lisa's referring to another podcast that I do. But that sounds fascinating. The Always Possible team helped to do a lot of reimagining events so that they kind of disrupt the conversation. Let's have a coffee. But for today, thank you so much, and thank you for being on the Possibility Club.
Been a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Possibility Club Practical Bravery. If you enjoyed this episode, do like, share, review, tell everybody about it. Look in the show notes for all the details of today's guest, stuff we talked about, stuff that's of interest, new things to read, new things to listen to. And if you are running a business or a charity and you are trying to accelerate or improve the impact that you have in the world, if you want to be famous for what you do and what you change rather than just what you sell, then talk to us. alwayspossible.co.uk. We want to hear from you, we want to talk to you, we want to amplify and elevate your ideas, and who knows, we might be able to help you feel more confident and clear about what's next. alwayspossible.co.uk. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new special guest and a new insight on practical bravery in action.
The Possibility Club is an Always Possible podcast. The interviewer was Richard Freeman for Always Possible, and the producer and editor was me, Chris Thorpe Tracy, for Lo-Fi Arts. Have a good week.
alwayspossible.co.uk.
Lo-Fi Arts.